Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and you know that there is a huge problem in America when it comes to the use of all-white juries to send black people to prison. I can't overemphasize how serious this issue is. You saw me fighting on this issue along with thousands of other people in Louisville, Kentucky, in the case of Judge Olu Stevens, who had the courage, the audacity, and just the will to speak up against this very important problem. And so I can't quite talk to Judge Stevens yet because I don't want to disrupt what he's trying to do in terms of keeping his job. We don't want to get a brother fired. So I reached out to my favorite criminologist in the world, Dr. Chenelle Jones at Ohio Dominican University. How you doing today, Dr. Jones?
I'm good. How are you? It's actually a really nice day here on a Sunday morning, and excited that he gets to stay on the bench. Like that's great news.
Yes,
So I'm
yes,
good.
yes. I'm really excited, and I'll tell you, a lot of people very close to the situation have told us that all the protests that these people were doing out in the streets and the protests people were doing online, that was heavy in the actual negotiation, that really like swayed the direction of what happened, that he could have easily been removed from the bench. But black people, well, not just black people, but conscientious people stood together and fought for what they wanted, and I believe that it was a victory. So, Dr. Jones, let's start from the beginning. You and I had a conversation about some of this, and I know you're such an expert on the criminal justice system and all these other things, and we talked about just all white juries and kind of what happens with this. What is your take on just sort of this jury thing as kind of an issue?
Well, I think it's very important to understand first off what he was doing. So we know Judge Olu Stevens was the judge that decided to dismiss an entire jury because there were no African American represented on the jury pool. There is a process in most juries where it's called voir dire, where the defense attorneys and the prosecutors they go through this process of selecting potential jurors for any sort of trial. Now, usually through that, juries or the prosecutors or the defense attorneys, they're allowed to use a certain amount of strikes. Now, these can be strikes with for cause, so they can dismiss a jury for cause or reason, or they can use what we call peremptory strikes. That means dismissing a juror for no potential reason, but they may jeopardize the case for whatever reason. The thing about that is that when they dismiss the jurors, they have to use a race neutral reason for dismissing the potential juror. So the problem here with this case, though, is that you had an African American defendant and you had the potential jurors who were all African American. They were all dismissed. So at some point, you have to say, okay, this is not coincidental. The prosecutors they knew what they were doing, and so this hurts the defense case. And when we talk about having jurors that are representative of the population in which that's serving in that county, and also for the defense, it's very important that we have representative jury pools and jurors because this can weigh heavily on the outcome of a case. This was initially decided in the case, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the case in 1986 of Batson v. Kentucky, where the Supreme Court ruled that there must be a race neutral reason why a potential juror is dismissed. So during this case, there was an African American male who was on the defense. There were four potential jurors. All jurors were dismissed. So he appealed this case all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they rendered down this decision. The problem here is that when you have prosecutors, and they have these cases, and you have no jurors who are representative of the defendant, this really hurts a defendant's case because people of color on jury, they actually are able to understand and bring a different perspective into the case. Whereas if that African American perspective or that person of color's perspective is removed from that, then it hurts the potential case of the defendant. And this is where you start to get into issues of wrongful convictions. This is where you have issues of implicit bias permeating the criminal justice system. And then that ultimately leading to why we have another reason why we have issues of mass incarceration right now. So when Judge Olu Stevens took a stand and decided this jury pool, there are no African Americans on here, I'm dismissing the entire thing. He made a statement and he really put the notion out that there's a problem here and I'm going to do something about this problem. Usually, there are some judges who take a stance like this, but a bold one, as Judge Olu Stevens did, you don't really see that. And so, many people applauded him, including myself, for realizing that there is a problem and him actually doing something about it. We need more people to take a stance like that. I think, it was just phenomenal. And then the simple fact that he was criticized so much, and he actually had to go into mediation to defend why he should remain on the bench because of this. I think, he demonstrated that he is an impartial judge. And you need more judges to be impartial like that. So, I applaud his effort and what he did. And the simple fact that you had so many people rallying behind him and supporting him, and ultimately he got to remain on the bench. I think that is just phenomenal. But this all goes back to, we had the process of African Americans being excluded from from jury pools, and now we have they're able to be a part of a jury pool. But then you have these strikes, which removes them back again. So we're kind of going back to the old system, and that's not making any progress forward, and that's a problem, at least the way I see it.
Well, I do think it's a very interesting thing because, um, if you listen to Tom Wine, who's the Commonwealth attorney who went after Judge Stevens for what happened, just so everybody knows, the Commonwealth attorney is kind of like the district attorney, basically. Um, you'll hear Tom Wine, who's a Democrat, say things like, "I'm in support of diverse juries. I want diverse juries." And what's interesting is that in the particular case at hand, Wine got a diverse jury. It was 8-4, for African Americans, and the defendant was acquitted. And so Wine then, pushes the case and pushes to have Judge Stevens removed from the bench or removed from criminal cases because
Mhm.
he gave him his diverse jury, and the outcome wasn't what he wanted it to be. And it's funny. It almost makes me think about another factor that I've observed is that you will see people like say a Tom Wine or whomever, who will go out into the community, into the black community, and say, "Hey, we want diverse jury pools. So show up for jury duty. Show up for jury duty. Show up for jury duty. Take off work. Do what you got to do. Come on out to jury duty. We want you on juries." But then if I'm black and I'm doing what you tell me and I show up for jury duty, but I'm going to be struck from every case that involves a black person, then what's the point in me wasting my time? It's almost as if, it's almost as if there is a game being played here where they want you to kind of show up so they can say, hey, we have these black people here, but they just happen to randomly not be chosen. That they just, you know what I mean? And people are sort of ignoring the elephant in the middle of the room, which is that there's a violation of that of the precedent set in Batson versus Kentucky, which says that you can't discriminate against a juror based on race. A lot of the attorneys that I know who are not black don't even know much about Batson. And it's just interesting to me. It just says to me almost that basically the game is we want black people coming in, and then if they just happen to get randomly eliminated, then hey, it's not our fault. Do you think that that's kind of what's happening here?
I think it sort of is. And, you touched on a point that's very important, that a lot of attorneys don't know about that. That is like a phenomenal decision that took place with the Supreme Court, and it's very important. So just, I'm kind of shocked by that right now. And even in the ruling of that, I don't know if a lot of people know, Thurgood Marshall even said the only way to eliminate racial discrimination is to, in the jury selection, is to eliminate peremptory challenges. Like, that's what he said when they write their dang, I can't even think of the word right now, but in the write up in his decision after that case or after that ruling. So I think that is so important, and I think a lot of people need to know about that. But it is like this game, because what happens is people start to get discouraged from even going out and serving on a jury pool. And that's where, what when people go register to vote, they're part of the jury pool, and then they're pulled in to become a potential juror. Then they go through the selection of voir dire. And so, when people know, oh, we're going to be struck down, we're not going to be included on this trial, then what's the use of even showing up or using some other reason why they can't serve? And so then that discourages people from even going through that process. And the problem is, we need more black jurors. We need more jurors of color to step up and just fight through it, and go in and serve and be a representation for the community in these cases.
Well, just digging a little deeper into this whole Batson versus Kentucky decision. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just sort of looking at a summary here. And basically, the issue in the case, which involved a man named James Batson, who was convicted of burglary. Basically, the preemptory challenges were used to remove all four African Americans from the jury pool. And so Batson challenged this as a violation of his Sixth Amendment right to an impartial jury and equal protection under the 14th Amendment. And the ruling was basically or the issue of the case was whether the use of peremptory challenges to remove a potential juror from the jury pool based on race violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, and the ruling was yes, it does. And so it's just interesting to me that even with that ruling, that to this day I don't feel comfortable as an African American showing up to any sort of any sort of jury duty because especially someone like me, right? I already know I'm going to be eliminated from everything, right?
Oh,
Anything,
I probably would be too.
right? Anything involving a black person, you and I,
Like, we don't want you.
right? You and I apparently have no ability to be impartial. But the guy watching Fox News every day, hearing Bill O'Reilly talk about how black people are violent, he can get on the jury, but you and I can't get on the jury, right? Because the color of our skin will already set off alarm bells for a lot of the prosecutors. And so what you really see in this case in Louisville is the Commonwealth Attorney Tom Wine kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth, kind of on one hand saying, hey, I support diverse juries, but then when you give him a diverse jury, 8-4, he gets angry. Why? Because it's affecting his conviction rate, right? Because a lot of these prosecutors love to brag about how high their conviction rate is, without concern for whether or not the people are guilty or innocent. It's this is how many people I've fried. This is how many people I've sent to prison. I'm tough on crime, but you gotta also be tough on injustice. I mean, you've got to sort of fight for what is right. You can't just focus on sending people to prison. You got to focus on finding the truth. I mean, am I crazy or
No,
what?
that's right. And that's why you have the judge who is in the room who serves as that impartial body. When you have the prosecutor, of course, they're going to pull and want everything done in their favor. You have the defense, they're, of course, going to pull and want everything done in their favor. So you have the judge there that serves as that impartial person. And this is exactly what Judge Olu Stevens did. He stood up, he said, no, I see a problem and I'm going to do something about it. They have the authority to do that. That's why they're the judge. And he exercised his right and authority. He was well within his judicial authority to do what he did. And the problem is, as you had previously stated, it just went against, the Commonwealth attorney, and he got upset about it. So
Well, that leads to my last question because everybody, in case y'all don't know, Dr. Jones is dressed in her Sunday best, so
I
she
am.
she got to go see the Lord today. But I want to ask you about this. You know, Obviously Judge Stevens is a black man, and there are some who would wonder, why is it that when this black man who uses the authority given to him by the state to make a decision, that's reasonable and well within his rights, why is suddenly his job sort of put on the line, because he used that authority? Where do you think race plays a role, not just in terms of the whole jury selection process and the criminal justice system, but where do you see race sort of playing a role in the way Judge Stevens was treated, by his own peers?
I think race had everything to do with this case. You have an African American man who is in a position of authority. Of course, people are going to have a problem with that. Even if it was a black woman in a position of authority being the judge and made the same decision, people would have a problem with that. Why? But particularly with the black male, because there are so many contrary images to that just destructs everybody's worldview. You typically don't see a person in a position of authority and then exercise that. Usually you put a person in that position, and unfortunately, sometimes it's thought that he should just go along with the program and just, okay, we got you here. Now you just do what you're supposed to do, and we won't, cause you any problems or anything like that. But as soon as you disrupt the whole thing that we got going on here, we're gonna take you out your job. And that very well could have played a problem. This played a part in this whole case, and that's exactly what. Because I just don't understand why he had to even go into mediation to begin with to fight for his position for doing the right thing. It's mind-boggling to me, and that is part of the problem of this. And that just demonstrates, even in his position of power and authority, he is still to some extent oppressed. And that goes to speak to so many other much broader issues within the criminal justice system, that when you have, people of color who, they kind of go up the ranks and they still get into positions of power, they still are challenged and struggle, and placed in these positions where they have to fight. And that is just not right. And I think that played a significant part in this case. And, ultimately he won, but he won much in part to you and the work that you all did out on the ground, the people who were protesting, the people who were advocating on his behalf, and that just stood up and said, wait a minute, right is right and wrong is wrong. And what you guys are doing to this guy is wrong. And what he's doing is right. We're going to help him. We're going to stand and support him. I don't know if the outcome would have been as successful or what it was had it not been for all of the other advocates that stepped up and supported him in this whole effort.
Well, I think the great lesson is that people, when we stand together and support each other, good things can happen. I can also say that when I started hearing, well, once I got involved, I started hearing from different people that had different points of view, and oh, you don't want to see it this way, or this isn't what's going on, and it got real political because you're sort of poisoning the Kool Aid of the Democratic Party in that city. They're like, wait a minute, we control the black folks here. These are our Negroes, and and so I just told people, I said, you know what, the way I keep my life simple is I focus on two things: right and wrong, and that's it. I don't care,
Simple.
Democrat, Republican. I don't want liberal, conservative. No, no,
Mhm.
right and wrong. All white juries are wrong, and diverse juries are right, and that's it. That's it. And I remind people of a study done by at Duke University that basically said that when you add just one black juror to a jury pool, or to the actual jury that tries the case, the conviction differential between whites and blacks almost entirely disappears. And so that there you go. That's your answer. So it looks like Thurgood Marshall gave us the solution, what, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Are we going to listen? I don't know. I don't know. All right. Well, I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Jones. I truly appreciate your time.
Welcome. Very, very welcome. This is always good.
Yes, is always amazing. And everybody, I want you to know that Dr. Chenelle Jones, she's my personal Michelle Alexander. She just so y'all know, so y'all can get in on the ground floor. It's not really the ground anymore because she's actually blowing up a little bit. But she's the next Michelle Alexander. So I want you guys to follow her. Go check her out. She cares about the people. She cares about truth and justice. She's an amazing scholar. So go find out more about Dr. Chenelle Jones. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and when you get that job and you're the only black person in the room, I guess the rule must be to just show up with your black skin and smile a lot, because I guess as soon as you open your mouth, there could be some trouble, could be some hell to pay. But you know what? At the end of the day, I encourage you to do what's right and don't be afraid to speak up, especially if you're doing the right thing. All right, everybody, well, take care, and we will talk to you soon. God bless. Bye bye.